So in the past, I've made clear how masonry, big pharma, and secret societies have made the world the miserable place that it is. Now I'm going to tell you a story about how psychiatry, psychiatrists, big pharma, and psych drugs ruined my life, along with women. So growing up, a lot of females broke my heart. And I'm going to try to make this brief as possible. And because they broke my heart, I was a sad guy. And in school, I was thinking about how they hurt my feelings instead of thinking about my schoolwork. And I try to think about something fun to make myself feel better. So, it relates to concentration and focus as well. Basically, when I was 13 years old, I had my first misdiagnosis. It was because I was thinking about how females broke my heart. And I had basically made up a story that was partially true, actually, that during a math test, math in a course that I know very well, I had spaced out during the test. And around this time, I started smoking marijuana, so there was some truth to it. I had spaced out. I was smoking marijuana to make myself feel better about my broken heart. And this is before the major heartbreak in high school, which I carved on my forearm, under my wrist, a broken heart. I've had this for, like 18 years or so. Anyway, so we go to a psychiatrist, Dr. Freelander. That's how well I remember. I remember the psychiatrist's name. I remember the events better than anyone. No one knows as well as I do. And while I was there, since psychiatry had no valid diagnostic test, and it has no valid diagnostic test, no one knows better than I do that psychiatrists are full of shit. I knew from day one, because he gave me my first misdiagnosis, which started off as temporal lobe seizures, which my parents were arguing, and it turned into depressed with slightly psychotic features. You might say, well, based on what? Based on a lie that I had made up to avoid being punished by my parents for my poor performance on the test, which I wasn't taking seriously. I was high. I wasn't really concentrating during it. I was kind of, I was in the right state of mind to do well on it. See, the problem is, a lot of you are stupid enough to say, well, that's not their fault. Well, the next almost 20 years, next 18 years or so, well, actually, yeah, next about 20 years, absolutely was their fault. Bear with me. You also have to keep in mind that a lot of the psychiatrists I've seen since then were not aware of the original diagnosis. They were just told by my parents that this guy has temporal lobe seizures. My parents actually disagreed with the first psychiatrist, and I obviously knew better than all of them. I disagreed with them all. You see, in other areas of medicine, they have valid tests. So what you say doesn't matter. If you say, well, I think that I might have cancer. Well, they take a test and they know whether or not you do. If you say, I have cancer and that's why this and this, and they take a test and they say, well, no, actually you don't have cancer. So the fault actually lies on the psychiatrist. Because I spent the last 20 years telling them exactly why they are wrong. That there's nothing wrong with me. So they started giving me Prozac and, they were thinking about giving me something called Boost Bar. And eventually they would switch to Zoloft. And then the Depakote was one of the first drugs. And make a long story short, I've been on and off psych meds for about 20 years based on their lies. Now, one thing you have to understand is there's something called early identification and prevention. And I'm not talking about mental illness. I got a cough, damn, fuming. I'm talking about revolutionaries. Okay, they say this guy's a problem child, so he's going to be a problem as an adult. He has a problem with authority as a teenager. You know, he's going to have problems with authority as an adult. So let's discredit him now so that we have it covered later. There goes the history of mental illness. So now they can come at this guy from a different angle. So as I went through life, when I was, you know, I got my heart broken about 15 years old. And this led to me being very angry. This is what led to me hanging out with gang members. You know, when I went to Live Oak High School, there, you know, I hung out with a bunch of black guys. Some of them were Crips. Some of them were wannabes. Some of them were thugs. Some were just black guys who hung around because everyone kind of sticks to their own race. In high school, it's almost like prison or something, or jail. And, you know, I knew I was in a small town in Morgan Hill, and I had went to boarding school before that, and I came back. You know, I was smoking weed there, and wasn't doing too well. Same thing, heartbreak on my mind, smoking weed to make myself feel better. It's messing up my concentration. So I come back. And that's when I decided I'm going to step it up, you know. I'm going to be a lot tougher than these guys in high school because they're kind of like watered down versions of thugs. So this heartbreak is turning into hatred. So women and how they've treated me, you know, it all goes back to social norms, really. What are the commonalities? What do the two things have in common? Mental health and females. It's social norms. Females are breaking my heart because of their inferior judgment, which is a result of the nurture or lack thereof that comes from social norms. And mental health is drugging me because it is socially normative to allow a bunch of antichrist new age sickos in mental health to drug people, including children. You know, I've seen firsthand because I was one of those teenagers, damn near a child. I was 13 years old when I had my first diagnosis. I was in grade school still, I believe. Yeah. I was in grade school. I was in junior high, you know. And they were taking powerful drugs. Serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or whatever the fuck they're called. SSRIs. And so, between the Prozac, which can make people very energetic and angry, the broken heart, you know, they had basically created a very violent gang member. You know, instead of me addressing this problem in a way that was healthy, instead of women showing me love and helping me get over that, because women had consistently treated me the same way that reflects brainwashing by white social norms, you know, they neglected a handsome young man, very athletic, very smart, smarter than everyone else. But because of what I was going through, the psychological factors, I wasn't performing too well in school, even though I was more intelligent than everyone else there. And what would follow, the years after, would definitively show that. So, then, I go to the psych ward one of the first times after, you know, around 15 years old, after she breaks my heart. And, you know, I believe the first time I went to the psych ward, I went next door to see the neighbor's daughter, you know, which is one of the first times I was settling. Okay, I didn't really like her, but I wanted female company. I was lonely and miserable. So I go there. I come back. My dad and my uncle hold me down and carry me, you know, to the car. My mom drives while they're holding me down the back seat. They take me to the psych ward. The people there say that, hey, you know, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to call the police and so on. But, you know, we'll take them this time, but next time you have to follow the process. Make a long story short, I start, you know, I live in the middle of nowhere at the time, and I still do. I snuck out to get marijuana because they didn't want to drop me off. They were very protective. So later on, they would realize this, and they would drop me off as they go out. They realized how ridiculous it was to keep me cooped up here and that it was feeding into my anger. So I go to reform school. So basically my first kind of prison setting was my household with overprotective parents. They didn't let me sleep over or even go meet the kids at the bowling alley. Nothing like that. You know, very protective. They said, if you want to, you know, have friends over, that's fine, but you can't go to their house. So I'm stuck in this prison. It's a physical prison. It's a mental prison. It's a spiritual prison. It's not a good place to be. So then, after sneaking out, going to get marijuana, they came up with a ridiculous idea, you know, that this guy had seizures. He was in a fugue state. He would leave. He's not knowing where he's going, you know. And I wasn't in a rush to correct him, but I saw what happened the last time I let them believe something that wasn't true that led toward mental health. So then I did correct him, you know. Eventually I was like kind of sad, like, oh, you know, I'm going out to get marijuana. I don't like being here. That's why I'm doing this. It's not a temporal lobe. But they insisted. And psychiatrists never corrected them, even though later on they would abandon that idea that I have temporal lobe seizures. So from the start, they had it all wrong. And later on, they would admit that. But they would never, for political reasons, they would never admit that there was nothing wrong with me. Nothing, you know, genetic or nothing, you know, no mental illness. That it was a normal reaction to these specific circumstances, you know, that not too many people had. Here I am, half Nigerian, half white, in the middle of nowhere, overprotective parents, women treating me bad, females, you know, females my age at the time, obviously, treating me bad, society not understanding me, and there's a lot of racial things going on as well as they're trying to play me out as stupid. To them, me struggling in school was just the black man is fucking ignorant. It never occurred to them, with all their white social norm conditioning, that I was actually the most intelligent person by far. These people were inferior minds who felt comfortable and weren't being mistreated by females their age. I was the ugly fucking the ugly duckling effect, which will later on go to the Martha Mitchell effect, without being a female, obviously. So, after a while, they sent me to reform school, CEDU, in the mountains by San Bernardino. It's a long story about this. There's a documentary called Surviving CEDU. There we take psych meds, we do occupational therapy and behavior modification and so on. And the people who get kicked out of there, you know, because I ran away twice and smuggled in weed twice, and because of the heavy conditioning, you know, I slightly gave into the conditioning there and the brainwashing. So I gave up the weed both times myself willingly. And so then they escort me, you know, an escort takes me to his house in handcuffs and leg shackles, you know, whatever you call those, you know, those things handcuff your legs. Not like slave shackles with a thick thing. They were like handcuffs that you put around the ankles. Okay, so they take me there. They take me to the airport. This is before 9/11. They wave me. They show the paperwork, and we go around the metal detector. That's how much clout these secret society New Age ninnies. The guy who started it hung out with hippies in the 60s or something, and he moved to Palm Springs, you know, in San Francisco. He moved to Palm Springs after being indoctrinated with the occult movement from the 60s, the gay liberation, the women's liberation movements, all these movements in the 60s. He brings that ideology with him to Palm Springs. He starts taking in addicts and starts his own CEDU system to reform people. And he targets teenagers. So basically it was the New Age, the Antichrist garbage, it was psychiatrists, and it was females. And they're trying to shift the blame on me. How pathetic is that? How irresponsible is that? And these are the same bitches, mind you, who talk about blaming the victim. Like they're the victim and not the fucking millions of children they abort every year. Like they're the victim and not the people like me whose lives they ruin with their inferior perspective on life. Had they been real Christians, this problem would have never occurred. But they were influenced by materialism, feminism, and New Age secret society garbage. All right. So, I get kicked out of Cedo. I get escorted through the airport to Idaho, northern Idaho. The second time in my life I've been in snow, and it gets like 60 degrees below zero. They're starting to switch up their diagnosis. They don't know what the fuck to think. And just like when they don't know what the fuck to think with everyone else and they want to keep you in the system, eventually they would switch it to bipolar or some bitch shit like that. Okay, so I'm over there. And keep in mind, when you're angry, you talk fast. When you're emotional, your speech patterns change. To have to explain that to you is a fucking disgrace. And mental health is so dishonest that they'll take something we all know and they'll pretend it's not the case. They'll completely ignore it. They'll omit it from their calculations, if you want to call it that. Those dishonest, disingenuous dogs. Dishonorable, fucking disgraceful scum. Those ignominious traitors to humanity and God. So there I was, freezing my fucking balls off in a place that is not even fit for people who have committed a crime. I mean, there was people there who were asking, they said they want to go back to juvenile hall. They said in juvenile hall you kind of hang out and play fucking cards. You don't suffer this mind control bullshit, freezing your balls off in teepees and shit. It's like 60 degrees below fucking zero. I'm in a fucking teepee in the middle of fucking Idaho in the fucking mountains. Keep in mind, when I was at Cedo, it was not too far. San Bernardino's not that far away from Orange County, the highest concentration of skinheads. Just like you have a high concentration of gays in Frisco and all the small cities and all the way down to San Jose, there's gay people living there as a result. It's kind of like the center, and then there's gays spread out around the center. Same thing in Orange County. It's the center, and there's skinheads spread around, going to LA, LAPD, white supremacists. So around the camps, both camps, was a bunch of Nazis, and they're using Nazi science, and they have me in a camp that you might as well call a concentration camp. Because mental health talks about mindfulness. And keep in mind, biological psychiatry is the dominant form of psychiatry. And social biology is the new term for eugenics. So these are Nazi eugenic institutions and camps surrounded by neo-Nazis who are also influenced by Jewish internationalists who are the top of the food chain of the secret society New Age fucking movement, who love to scapegoat Nazis for what they had a hand in as well. Shit goes deep. And no, I'm not mistaken. I've been researching this for 20 years. Why do you think I remember this so well? So I've been thinking about this and doing my due diligence for 20 fucking years. Why these half-ass bitches have been seeing fucking patients and bitch shit like that. I've been doing the research hours a day, thinking about it carefully, with a superior mind, focused. And it was through my righteous indignation, in my Christian perspective, I rose above these people mentally, physically, spiritually, and certainly in the martial arts world. While they use Buddhist principles, they attempt to use them, I have a masterful application of those same principles coupled with my African inspiration and source of martial art, and the accompanying principles from there as well, as I fight for honor. They do it out of greed and conformity and social acceptance. I do it out of honor and a love for God and humanity. That's why their opinion will always, so help me God, will always be inferior to mine. Even if they were trying to be honest, their judgment is clouded by their inferior perspective, their pathetic emotions, and their desire for conformity and acceptance. Those pussies. Well, I'm a virtuous man of truth. So anyway, Following those years, I'm smoking weed, drinking every chance I get. You know, like every other fucking person my age in the fucking country, especially black. Anyway. They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. My dad's working like 16 hours a day or however long. So he's not even there that much to see what's going on. He just wants me to fall in line. Just like the people in charge. They have vested interest to play me out as crazy, to drug me stupid, so I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now. Psychiatry, psychiatrists, big pharma, and females ruined my life. My brain has the scars to show it. My wrist, or my forearm under my wrist, has the scars to show it. And my heart has the scars to show it. For being ripped up by the lesser sex. Their lesser fucking judgment. No one knows better than I do that feminism is bullshit. No one knows better than I do that psychiatry is bullshit. No one hates them more than I do. Because in my entire life, with no criminal record, I have been punished by the enemies of God for being inclined to tell the truth and to express my moral outrage. And the effects of the lesser sex doing me wrong for 3 decades. Since fucking kindergarten. Now, of course, a lot of you females will get offended. Oh, why does he say, oh, why does he call it the lesser sex? I'll give you a hint. You're not the greater sex, and you're not equal. So call it what you want. Anyway. You have to understand how this thing works. You have to understand the kind of inferior scum that I'm talking about. In a world where there's great evil and cowardice, one thing you can be absolutely certain of: the mental state of the man who puts his life on the line to make a change will always be superior to the mental state of the cowards who are making the world this way, and the masses of fools who lack the insight and wisdom to do what I am doing. Always. We live in a world where the most righteous are drugged because of their righteous indignation and moral outrage. Why do you think they push feminism almost harder than anything else? Because they know they have inferior judgment, and that's where humanity is vulnerable. Does the enemy attack where you're strong? Or does the enemy attack humanity where they are vulnerable? Like aborting babies and drugging foster children. So they empower the people with lesser judgment and less sense. The women. And now society is just toppling over. Put the fucking whores who are the most conformist and materialistic in positions of power. And it's a walk in the park to lead humanity astray. Ever since about the 60s, women have been more empowered than ever. And ever since about the 60s, society has gone to hell. They have empowered sick LGBT people, and they have empowered the lesser sex. And as a result, moral decay, debauchery, and decadence are at their peak in all of human existence. In the history of humanity, never has there been such uncivilized, immoral, debauchery accepted in the mainstream. Even cavemen had more sense than these Babylonian harlots and these sissy, effeminate forms of life. Ever since then, when I got speaking the way I do now, typically my parents would come, "Did you take your medicine?" And I'd be angry. So I'd yell at them. And they call the police. "He hasn't taken his medicine. And so and he's yelling and we're scared he might hurt somebody or something." Only one time did I say something that reflected me actually intending to hurt people, that I was taken to the psych ward. And what was it? I made a video about how the next time I see the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department that I was going to do something to them. I'm not saying I'm going to do that. I'm saying what I said. For those of you who love to twist my words and pretend that I'm a threat or something. And why did I say that? Because they had taken me to the psych ward for petty shit. Back to the Nazi oppressors. Back to the Zionist minions of Satan. For petty shit. They would come here, I'm completely calm and rational, and they would still take me. And obviously, they're biased now because I had quote-unquote threatened here. But here's the kicker. They did not cite that video in the psych ward. They cited a different video where I said I should do something to them. And they all swore up and down that that's a threat. That's like, you know, someone cuts you off in traffic and you say, "I should have fucking shot that person." And then someone calls the psych ward and they take you to the psych ward for saying that. You see how stupid that is? Oh, that's a threat. How the fuck is that a threat? First of all, did I email them the video? It was said in a video. I didn't email them the video. I didn't say it to their fucking face. And that's what they cited. This is the illogical, inferior lack of honor, virtue, and wisdom that comes from these sickos in mental health, these pussy new age garbage. Their feminist perspective of psychology. Their LGBT-friendly, drug Christian point of view. They're fucking scum. No one hates them more than I do. They ruined my life with their inferior philosophy. And it is that same philosophy these liberals in Hollywood, the entertainment industry, the media, including social media, push. You think it's a coincidence a bunch of liberal sissies are the most popular public figures made that, you know, on YouTube? It is those same inferior philosophies that allow for 100 million preventable deaths a year. That allowed for this indifferent nation to arm the Nigerian government along with the West, Britain, Israel, and Russia. During the Nigerian Civil War that killed my people. It's a recurring theme. The inferior philosophies in the greater Western philosophy tree are causing people to die and suffer on record levels. Never in history have we seen so much death and suffering. And it is philosophy that allows for it. And what is Masonry but philosophy and science? Remember, psychology was a branch of philosophy. And Masonry is concerned with philosophy and science. Chemistry and pharmacology are branches of science. It is a bunch of secret society scum that have ruined my life. And they used psychiatry and inferior gender people to fucking do it. And I'm supposed to listen to these mass murdering liars? These satanic cowards? And the lesser fucking sex that dresses up like a man and eats each other's pussies? Those liquor license having, baby killing, bearded lady muff munching butch dyke whores. The whore that rode the beast. Think about it. They ruined my life, and I'm being gang-stalked based on their lies and not the word of God.